an emerging artist at any age right now can produce a album and or singles and post it on the same platform as people that have major labels.
Yes, they can.
Right. And there's power in that. And this is part of when I'm talking about education reform, particularly for higher education. I'm like, you asking people to give you all this money, yet and still they can, unlike people that are majoring in music theater or opera, they don't have to wait for a production to go up for them to be on the same, literally same marketing field as someone that has a ton of dough, pumped behind them.
Welcome to the Vocal Lab. I'm Sarah Ramsey, and this show aims to pull back the curtain on the entertainment industry, where veterans give up-and-coming artists some of the information they wish they'd had when they were just starting out. Sort of a music industry primer, if you will. Thanks for joining us on the Vocal Lab. This is actually part 2 of our interview, so if you haven't caught part 1 yet, head back to the episode right before this one and get all caught up, and then join us back here. We'll see you soon.
I think that's the academic. They teach the what and not the why. Coming from that kind of mindset that, if we just teach you this through composed music, composer driven is what I call it, composer driven music, and just tell you, just do what's on the page. The composer told you when to get louder and get softer and when to stop and how to phrase. Show your excellence by doing what's on the page, right? Instead of, if it was story driven and we were talking about the standpoint, then we would be even looking at composer driven music from the standpoint of why. Why does the inflection go up on this phrase? Why does the dynamic level, dynamic marking change? Why does it pause and end in this manner? In the stops. So then it becomes, I'm not just singing the music. I am representing what this composer wanted to say through me. I'm a part of it. I'm the ally of the composer.
Yeah.
Like, let me speak your truth for you because you're not here to speak it.
Yeah.
Let me speak your truth through me. Versus let me just acquire my ability to control my dynamics and finish the notes as you have them written with no emotional connection or mental commitment to this page outside of doing it.
Yeah. And I mean, as an audience, I will take a singer who is like technically mediocre, even just the sound of their voice is to my taste just so, but there's an emotional connection and they are telling a great story. I will take that every time over someone who is singing vocal gymnastics all over the place and technically beautiful, but is devoid of any emotion or storytelling.
Right.
That gets boring to me.
It absolutely gets boring. I mean, and I think that this comes to our empathetic nature as human beings.
Yeah.
Right. We are wired to kind of feel if we allow.
Yep.
To hear people's story. We are wired to see people when we see people crying, it affects us.
Yeah.
If we see people laughing, we start laughing like, what you laughing about?
Yeah.
Like, you're like,
Totally.
What's so funny? Like, we just respond intuitively, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a part of our primalness, if you will.
Yeah.
So much so that now when I'm doing these master classes, I'm like, look here, you can be as perfect as you want to be, but let me tell you how you're about to be replaced by an algorithm.
Yeah.
Look, let me tell you how you're going to be so good that you're not going to get a job because, everybody can just sing the notes. What are you bringing to it?
If you're so good, you're going to be replaced by AI.
I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. That's what I call it, an algorithm.
Yeah.
I can find something that's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
We can code. We can find the right codes to manufacture your voice and reproduce the notes as on the page.
Yeah.
We can program that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so am I being ethically responsible as an educator to continue to uphold right notes as the ultimate goal? Perfect technique as the ultimate goal. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I really don't think perfection is the goal.
Yeah.
I
don't
really
think
don't.
it is. I don't think it is either. And I don't think it was supposed to be even in the cultural context where the perfectionism was a part of what made it viable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, particularly like in classical music, where part of its viability, cultural viability, is the balanced phrasing, is the consistency of tone, is the like there are certain quantifiable things that make it viable.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think again, academia has contaminated that idea, so that now the focus has become on mastering those quantifiable parameters instead of story in the context, using those parameters to further the story. You know, right.
And now,
Yep.
and do we have some great music
Right.
in the recording process?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that now we're at another line because of AI and because of technology and because of the ability to create the fake Drake, the fake so-and-so, the fake whatever, you know? So I think we're at a pivotal point, even in the contemporary music making, where we are seeing kind of this glorification now of authenticness. You know, where it's like, no, we need you to be authentic. We need you to be your authentic self. We need you to be all of these different things, almost to the detriment of formalized training, because it's like, well, if you sound too perfect, if you sound too controlled,
but I
doesn't
think
fit.
That's where the shift in the pedagogical approach is like it has to change at the same time, because it has to become about, which I think it is, again, at least in the circles that I run in, it is. I don't know about the larger space, but I hope that it is shifting to become about how do we do what you want to do sustainably.
Right. And how do you do your version of what it is that you're hearing?
Yeah.
So that you're not aiming towards your idea of perfection as Taylor Swift, Beyonce, as whomever it is that you're hearing, Ariana Grande, who now seems to be the vocal model of epitome right now in my studio. I don't know what that is, but you know, how do we recognize, well, how do I get your voice to tell the same story in this context, using the parameters that fit this particular modality, versus you trying to mirror image your idea of what you think, in this case, Ariana Grande is singing. You know, let's talk about her speaking voice versus yours. Let's talk about what's normalized in her instrument and how that is the same or different from yours. Right? So if you did the same functional behavior in your voice, it's going to sound different if you have different types of voices. Right? So it's those kinds of things that we're also in the commercial world really trying to battle with, I think, because it is our idea of, we just want to be right. We just want to do it right because this person was successful doing it this way. So if I do it this way, then I'm going to be successful. Right? Instead of that idea of, let me do my truth in this way.
It's like second.
Right.
It's along those lines, at least.
Absolutely.
But I from them.
Right.
Ariana Grande or Tori Kelly or one of
Right. Yeah. And I mean, even more so, and I think about it from that standpoint of, because I do believe in oral transmission. I do believe in learning culture through imitation. recognizing that that's a process, not the end product.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like,
yes,
so I'm
yes.
not saying don't do what they're doing. I'm saying don't let that be the end.
Right. It's a stepping stone.
It's a stepping stone.
Yes.
You need to, practice the licks in the way that they're
Mhm.
doing to understand how to operate in this cultural context.
Mhm.
But you also need to understand the why.
Mhm.
What is it that made them compelled for their voice to sound that way in that moment?
Mhm.
Are you just imitating this kind of breathy sound? Are you imitating this kind of vocal break, like on purpose, instead
Mhm.
of recognizing that, that just probably just happened in the
Yeah.
recording and we just let it be? Or
Yeah.
do you realize that this is a super track? Like,
Yeah.
this is a combination of a whole bunch of tracks and comms that sliced up to create a super track.
Yeah.
They didn't even do this live like this.
This was 87 takes.
I'm just saying. Let's be real. Let's be real here, right?
Right.
You
Right.
know, so putting all of this in context,
Yeah.
and making sure that that the students are aware of these processes
Yeah.
and recognizing how do they show up?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, go to the live version, go to a live version, go to a live version.
Yeah.
Do they have a live version? See, because granted, sometimes they're singing with a pre-recorded track, but if you can find a live version, let's see, what do they do? What do they do live? Do they do it better or do they do it different?
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say worse, or do they just change something?
Different.
Yeah.
Different.
So, and if they do it better live for different reasons, right? What is it? What is it about them, or what is it about what they're doing that is so innately them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how can we bring that to you?
Yeah. You wrote a book, one that we haven't talked about yet. You've written a lot of stuff, which is so fantastic. But you've written a book, So You Want to Sing Gospel, which we're going to put a graphic on the screen here. So it's part of the So You Want to Sing series of books on singing different styles that are put out in partnership with NATS, right?
Correct.
Which is the National Association of the Teachers of Singing. And I've read one or two other books in this series. I haven't read this one yet. And I'm super interested to hear more about your book. So you want to walk us through it a bit?
Yeah. So this book is actually a big derivative of my dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
So my dissertation was developing a pedagogy for teaching gospel singing in the applied lesson setting. And so when I was approached to do the So You Want to Sing Gospel, it was my effort to distill the dissertation into a book form.
Yeah.
And have parts that talk about the anatomy or vocal pedagogy as related to the style. It talks about stylistically, what are the parameters, like tools of improvisation, things that I use a lot in my work and Soul Ingredients in general. I'm always talking about tools of improvisation or tools of interpretation, so that when we're looking to emulate certain sounds, we know what the full tool belt looks like.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, it's only this 5 things, it's only this 4 things, so I itemize those things. And at the same time, I also talk about just the different modalities, and I'm trying to allow people to recognize that gospel music is so broad. It's so broad. It is not just the gospel sound that we're accustomed to of the choir settings of the 70s. It's, it is so much more than that. And it's so influenced our rhythm and blues. It's literally where R&B soul came out of. It was taking the gospel sound of the time and marketing it into kind of a commercial setting. So that's why they share so many of these relationships. So I talk about the different modalities, the different performance mediums, from the gospel groups to the choirs, also talking about like the more broader settings of the types of music, whether it's rhythm and praise, which is like R&B, right? R&B, gospel, or if I'm talking about inspirational music, which is a dominantly Christian music, but it doesn't use the word God. So we call it inspirational.
Yeah.
So they'll use love. Usually they'll use love or him, or they don't overtly say Jesus or God. Right. So I'm talking about all those things. And then I offer in that a way of creating repertoire lists based upon liturgical function. This part is specifically for those that to have church jobs, that specifically are like, okay, if I'm singing in a praise team, or if I'm singing as a soloist, how many Easter songs do you have in your rep? Like, come on, it's not like it's going to jump. How many Christmas songs do you have in your rep? Like, why are you scrambling for Christmas talking about what am I going to sing? Yeah. Why are you scrambling for Easter talking about what am I going to, some of these things, it has those ideas of being like, okay, so let's just start looking at how to prepare your rep in this manner. But it's talking more so from the soloist standpoint. From the perspective of the soloist. So that's what So You Want to Sing Gospel is really about.
I love that. Love the and I'm so fascinated because we've talked about your ebook, you're part of the Vocal Athlete, and you also have contributed chapters to several other textbooks and scholarly writings on the topics of voice and Black music history. So in addition to your books, your published work can also be found in Downbeat Magazine, New York Times, Journal of Singing, Journal of Voice, and Voice and Speech. Do you want to talk about any of the articles that you've written, and also how those opportunities have arisen?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that is like, once you start writing, and also being in spaces where you're presenting on topics a lot, then you start to become kind of a go-to for certain topics. For like the Downbeat and New York Times, that stuff was I think attributed to my agent when I released my album. My 2021 album. Was it 2021? Lord have mercy, you don't even know. I don't even know when his album came out. But I think it was like, I feel like it was 2021.
Yes, 2021. It's on my notes. We're getting to that next, actually.
Well, the agent who was doing the publicist, let me call it, not the agent, my publicist, was securing more of the trade magazine stuff. Whereas my work in academia continues to perpetuate the need for me to write the things that I talk about. More so. I think the Voice and Speech, the one in Voice and Speech is a collaborative article between myself, Elizabeth Benson, and Marissa Naismith. And it was another article that was on basically kind of a culturally responsive teaching approach, or diversity of DI article, where some of the other ones have to do with gospel music, contemporary singing. Some of them are interviews that of me talking about my methodology and the things that I do, or my unique story, if you will. So it's a big spread. And I tell teachers all the time, particularly when I'm visiting, I do a lot of visiting to vocal pedagogy classes. And I say that, my demographic has been academia. And then because academia is my demographic, I spend more time at conferences and presenting. Versus the commercial side, which technically I need to venture into, but academia is feeding me right now, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get my life together at some point. But anyways, but
add it to the list.
And come on, add it to the list, right? But as a result, recognizing that the publications that you bring, the presentations that you're giving at these conferences, is what stimulates your voice in the market, in the academic market.
Yeah.
And I'm talking at all these different colleges and universities globally from these conferences, from me being present at these conferences, and from me having the ability to speak in an informed manner about the topics that I speak about.
Yeah. So it just kind of becomes a little, I mean, within academia and the conference, it's a bit self-perpetuating, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's absolutely self-perpetuating. Yeah. I appreciate that thing.
Let's talk about your album. So yes, it was 2021 because it's here in my notes.
Yeah. Right.
Doesn't have to be true.
And just so for clarity, the people on my album, Cyrus Chestnut and Don Braden, are on the album, not the label.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I misunderstood the context there.
Yep. No, it's all good. For their own protection. Right?
Yes.
They are some phenomenal musicians that helped me bring this project to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
Don Braden co-produced this album with me and wrote some of the charts. Actually, some of them were instrumental versions on his album that I was like, yep, I'm taking that one. So like All or Nothing was originally released as a instrumental version. And I just adapted the lyrics to that version based upon what I wanted to say. And Cyrus Chestnut is just magical. Can't say anything. He's just magical when it comes to playing, and he was particularly important because of his relationship to gospel, jazz, Black music in general. I knew that he was going to be able to lay the foundation for the styles that I wanted to play, especially from like I said, from an authentic standpoint. One of the things that was most profound about this project, it was called All or Nothing because it represented me embracing the fact that I am all of these things. I am R&B, I am jazz, I am gospel.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that I've waited so long to release an album is because of that idea that I talked about in the very beginning, feeling like I didn't really belong in any genres. So because I didn't quite fit in R&B 100%, I didn't quite fit in gospel 100%, I didn't quite fit in jazz 100% in terms of what the superficial expectations of these genres were, right? I felt like, well, if I'm not singing at the level as other jazz artists, or if I'm not singing at the level of other gospel artists, then I'm not ready. Not realizing that all along that wasn't the issue.
Right.
And so by the time I decided I'm like, you know what, I'm going to release this album. Then it became, oh, well, if I was going to release an album, I'm going to let it be whatever it is. I'm going to, on purpose, as I said, on purpose, be in purpose, on purpose. I'm going to, on purpose, bring all of my influences to this project unapologetically.
Yeah.
So the people that I have on the album, all the way to my kids, all the way to my original tune at the end of the recording, Let It Shine.
Yeah.
Is a part of me. The horn players that were on this album are the horn players from the party band that I've been in for the last 15. Nope. Wait, my baby is, for the last 16 years.
Yeah.
It was all of these things that were very personable.
Yeah.
To me, the rhythm section and people that I had on the album, are colleagues that have been with me, through this process. Matter of fact, Don Braden, whom I've known probably since I was in grad school, had never really heard me sing.
Really?
Because, When we started doing this project, he just knew me for all these years because I'm so active in GEN and Jazz Education Network, you know, and I'm active as the African American Jazz Caucus lead. So I'm present. I'm always present, but I'm always present as an educator, and I'm always present as the doer of things, the organizer of things, not necessarily the artist. So, I mean, to be honest, I think he had a idea that I can sing, obviously, because of my positioning, but didn't really know until we started working. I mean, now I sing with his group, you know, a lot, but you know, that didn't happen because I was always so busy trying to help and heal other people.
Yeah.
That finally I was like, you know what? If I'm going to preach about you are wonderfully made, and I'm going to preach about being on purpose and in purpose, let me go ahead and model that. You know, so it was a great experience, you know, particularly when it came to doing the record label and like this ebook, the one that I'm talking about, it's going to be published. It's going to be self-published under Soul Ingredients Publishing. You know, I'm very much into at this point because academic writing, let me tell you, look, academic writing ain't no money in academic writing. Look here, you write this stuff and you give it to them. The end. All the hours that you put, there is no remuneration in this project, right? I mean, granted, you can say it in the same way with CDs that you're putting this labor and love because when you have CDs, it boosts your name and boosts your ability to get gigs and all that kind of stuff. So you can say and argue, well, academic writing boosts your credibility. You can make that argument, but at the end of the day, credibility don't exactly pay the bills. I'm just saying. You know, so this is a part of the unapologetic and at the same time being a part of this creative market. Yeah. And taking advantage of the idea that, oh, you mean I can produce my own album and hire the people that I need, hire the top publicists and hire the top radio promoters and have my music playing on Sirius XM and all over the country, all over the world in the same manner of somebody that's coming off Blue Note. So it's been a lot of the shifts in my own career that I'm like, how am I maximizing or leveraging where I am in the market? You know,
desire, willingness, ability to do it for yourself rather than waiting for, you know, a label or whoever to do it, to pave the road for you. Did that, I'm curious, like through the lens of somebody like an emerging artist. I said that all of a sudden, like an emerging artist who's maybe younger in their life as well, possibly. Were those things possible because you were able to fund those pieces for yourself in a different way than you might have been like earlier in your career? So was that an advantage to doing it at this stage of your career?
I think it's an advantage
20 years ago?
I think it's an advantage to doing it at this stage of my career only because that is the advantage of this time period. Yeah. You know, because I say that as an emerging artist is coming, it's in high school, forget coming out of high school, right? An emerging artist at any age right now can produce a album and or singles and post it on the same platform as people that have major labels.
Yes, they can.
Right. And there's power in that. And this is part of when I'm talking about education reform, particularly for higher education. I'm like, you asking people to give you all this money, yet and still they can, unlike people that are majoring in music theater or opera, they don't have to wait for a production to go up for them to be on the same, literally same marketing field as someone that has a ton of dough, you know, pumped behind them, you know, so we need to recognize that. And so I think that, yes, in this season, I was in a place where I could financially support how much it would cost
Mm-hmm.
to pay for all of these people. But at the same time, I think it just exists now. I
Yeah.
think the delay for me, and this is actually the part that the publicist spent, was that the glory of waiting was that I knew who I was.
Yeah.
And that was how she marketed. Like, no, she waited on purpose. And so it became like, where has this person been? Kind of a spin,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is the only advantage
Mm.
for me in this is
Mm-hmm.
that I know who I am and I know what I want to say. And so I didn't have to go through the idea of waiting for a label to make me,
to tell you who you are,
to tell me who I was, to say, well, this is what you need to do to make money, right?
Right.
Now I could say, this is who I am and this is how I want to present myself in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's just different in that way. But I certainly in the idea of valuing your ability to make music and along the process, I support emerging artists that wants to put music out.
Yeah.
I'm like, be where you are. Don't be like, well, it's not as good as so and so and so. Is it your truth?
And I do think that it's a bit of a magical time in terms of the accessibility for everybody. I mean, it might be different if you're going into a big studio with a big producer and heavy players and all of that, but you also have the capacity to do it with, Logic or GarageBand or
with
whatever.
Logic or GarageBand or your best friend or whatnot.
In your bedroom.
And that itself is its own genre.
Exactly.
It's its own audience that just wants to hear. They don't want the overly produced or they don't want the overly cerebral, just kind of approach to music. They just want to hear you share yourself in a very like campfire. I call it the digital campfire.
Yeah.
Because that's what it kind of makes you feel like. It feels like I'm just sharing who I am with everyone.
And I think the fact that artists all have access to upload it on the major
platforms
called DSPs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And also social media has been a big piece of that as well. That doesn't necessarily, well, certainly in Canada, it doesn't translate into dollars. I know in America, it's a bit different because creators do have the potential to earn income differently than Canadians do, but that's a whole different conversation. But the ability to at least start to build an audience, just putting your music out there in front of people and connecting with an audience and building a fan base in a way that was not available 20 years ago.
Correct.
Did not exist. Yeah.
Correct.
Is there anything that you see often missed or misunderstood by artists?
I think it all goes back to the theme of this whole talk.
Mm-hmm.
Is I think what's often missed is they're wonderfully made.
Yeah.
And you have a superpower. And your ability to affect the people that are listening to you. And sometimes I think artists take it for granted or don't fully move on purpose in their platforms. So.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much I love that. I have written it down, actually, how much I love that phrase, in purpose, on purpose. Or the other way around, on purpose, in purpose.
Interchangeably.
I mean, that really resonates for me. I really love that.
Oh,
that one might just go up on my wall.
Well, come on.
Is there anything else that you think is really important for up and coming artists to know that we haven't touched on today? Or alternately, best piece of advice for emerging artists?
I think the best piece of advice is to spend time figuring out not just who you are, but acknowledging who you are in the moment. So I think sometimes when we say that, we leave it up to the artist or the person to dig deep. And sometimes I think they overthink it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's as simple as just being like, well, you're already wonderful. You're already communicating. So what does that mean for you? And then how do we music that?
Yeah.
And how do we talk to the people and find the audiences that value what it is that you have to say because you're the same. And they have the same desires and stories that you're just able to use your voice to articulate for them. So I think that would be the biggest advice.
This morning.
Well, shucks.
Where can people find you? Web, social media, upcoming things?
Yes. Well, you can always go to www.drtrineice.com. And I'm sure you'll have that spread out.
I will have all of this in the show notes as well.
As I'm living on purpose, living in purpose on purpose, I'm looking to give myself permission to move forward, even into the commercial spaces, to say, no, people outside of the academic arena want to know this information, and really making a concerted effort to move forward with my academy stuff, but packaged in a way for everyone, and making sure that I'm following through with a lot of the ideas that I have for online courses that are accessible to everyone, so I would definitely encourage folks that are interested in the kinds of things that I'm bringing forward and want to know more to visit drtrineice.com or follow my social media at Dr. Trineice for both Twitter and Instagram and Facebook for that matter. Everything is at Dr. Trineice. Stay tuned. Stay tuned, because as the shift occurs, make sure you're in the number.
And you are, correct me if I'm wrong, but I am relatively sure that I saw your name on the program of events for the Lovetri Institute this summer. You're part of the coursework. You're teaching there.
Yeah, right
You're
now.
You're going to explain it better than I'm stumbling over.
It's all good. Yeah, I'll be a guest faculty. I used to be on the faculty permanently, but now as I'm shifting and moving into other things, Jeannie is, first of all, I always say she has championed me. She's been with me since the beginning of my graduate journey. It was her that was one of my experts on my dissertation that sat with me and said, this is bigger than what you realize it's going to be. Like, she predicted all of this, like the whole Dr. Trineice Soul Ingredients and how I've taken to academia. She predicted all of this back then. And I was like, what? But, and as a result, I always come back to the Institute to share my knowledge and to offer courses. And so the courses that I'm offering is my When Science Meets Soul course, and it's available to level 3 graduates. So it's one of the advanced course offerings for the Somatic Voice Work Lovetri Institute. And I think right now I'm offering it as a level 1 and level 2 of When Science Meets Soul, but that might shift. We'll see how registration goes, and we'll see, what's available. But that's where I will be. I'll be there this summer. I'll also be at the Vocology Institute in Utah. I'll do a day with them. I've been doing that for the last couple of years as well. Yeah. Headed right now in a couple of weeks to Australia for the ANATS, the Australian NATS, right?
Yes.
Doing a ANATS tour of ANATS Sydney, ANATS Melbourne, and ANATS Brisbane, doing kind of a whole thing and bringing soul ingredients to them as well. So I'm into moving around and just sharing what I do with the different Natch chapters around.
Love that.
Yeah.
This summer.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. That's great.
See, so you already sold a book.
So see, you know what? Come on. Well, that was so wonderful. It was a joy sitting and talking with you about all of these different things. I appreciate you.
Thank you.